Destination Nightmare, the B-Movie Podcast.
Yes, that is it.
It! Everyone is afraid of it.
Look at the ache in his face. That's what killed the old man.
Bombs can't kill it. Fire can't burn it. Water can't drown it.
So you have come back. What part of me could have wanted you back?
Only one man can control it, and he is bad.
Am your master. Lower your arms. I am your master. God, please don't. Kill him!
This is it. See it.
You know, I actually saw Roddy McDowall's home movies on YouTube. Did you watch any of them?
No, I heard about him though, but yeah, I remember you mentioning them, but I didn't.
Yeah, I actually did. It was just like silent 16mm prints of him and friends on the beach, probably Malibu Beach or something like that. And Natalie Wood was there, and Lawrence Harvey was there, whatever. But it was just like, you know, after I was watching It, which is our movie for today, I saw afterwards Roddy McDowall's home movies. So I said, well, we'll see what this is, you know. And it was tame enough, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that he actually did that, but it's kind of cool that he did too, you know. So
yeah, really into photography and film and stuff, and so I think there's a lot of behind the scenes photos of Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, a lot of home movies, because apparently he was really popular with people. Everybody liked him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
he was also. I've also watched. There was a clip from Carol Burnett where he shows up on his ape in his ape makeup.
Yes, I saw that one.
That was funny. Yeah, Roddy did quite a few of these. He did all the Apes movies. I think he was in all of them. I'm pretty sure he was in all of them. Yeah. He did some horror movie, Hell House, and I think he was in the Night Gallery movie, wasn't he? The TV Night Gallery movie.
The pilot. He played the rich nephew or grandson of the old guy. That's that picture that kept changing.
Yeah, right. You talked about it, that it freaked you out, right, when you were a kid.
Yeah.
He was in this one movie, and it's on YouTube. It's called Shock Therapy, and that's where I guess he met Lauren Bacall, who was one of the home movies. It's like him and Carol Lindley, and some guy's a reporter, and he goes into the mental asylum to do a expose. I think that's what the premise of it was. I saw it a long time ago, but I think at the beginning it's like you see Roddy with some like hedge clippers, and all of a sudden there's somebody sitting there, and you see him going to chop their head off. You don't see anything, but you know, off screen. So I was like, oh, okay, you know. But I don't think Roddy thought much of this movie, because I read a little anecdote where the girl, you know, the British girl Jill Haworth, who was very beautiful in this movie. After the movie was over, they were friends, and you know, she was doing a play, and he got her a poster of this movie It, except that when he gave it to her, he wrote SH in front of the It, so you know. That's what he thought of this movie. I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think it was that great either. You know, I thought the ending was absurd, but you know, we'll get there eventually. I mean, it was like, really?
Kind of interesting up till the end when they had that, like,
the idea. Let's try a bazooka. let's try some heavy duty artillery. Oh, well, I guess we're going to have to go for plan
B.
C, D, N, whatever. We'll get there or whatever. But it's just a weird movie because he plays this creepy character, but why the hell do they have his living with his dead mother like in Psycho thing? That was just like, what the hell is all that all about?
That was to kind of establish some horror element, or
I imagine, yeah. Because it was just like, it went too far there, you know. It was like, he doesn't need to be Norman Bates. You know,
exactly.
we get it, he's creepy, you know, I mean. And then that one scene where he's like envisioning Jill Haworth in his bedroom.
Yeah. He's naked on the couch looking at him lovingly. And then he walks up and he suddenly sees it's his mother, and you hear him scream.
I guess that you're right. Those are like, they just want to install 2 shock elements.
I
don't know. Did you say you saw this on late night TV or something when you were a kid?
Night TV, maybe I don't know, like
CBS late night movie, maybe
or like Chiller Theater. No, this doesn't seem a Chiller Theater kind of movie.
Did you watch Chiller in the 70s?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. You got your 6-fingered hand and all that stuff. You got to see all that.
I'm scarier than the opening was scarier than the movie. So, you know. But maybe it was on like a later, like around cable. I saw it on like TNT or I think I saw it.
It did play on TNT on Monster Vision.
Yeah, that's where I saw a lot of these kind of movies because you know, like back in the 60s and early 70s, they were still doing a lot of the Universal style and some Hammer monster movies on those
on the shows.
Yeah, like
and
whatnot.
Well, this movie kind of wants to look like a Hammer movie in a way. You know, it has that feel to it.
Yeah, it almost pulls it off.
Almost.
Not enough.
Yeah, that's it. Jill Hayworth tried, but they needed about 4 or 5 more,
Yes.
fetching ladies in order to get to the Hammer, quantity of whatever. Of boobies, yeah, exactly. You know, it tried. It looks like it kind of, you know, the Brits, you know, Roddy, the locations and all that, but not quite. So yeah. So so you're saying that when you were watching Chiller or whatever else was on, because I'm sure there was a nighttime. Was Chiller nighttime or afternoons?
I remember it as nighttime.
Because it was Fright Night too on WOR.
Well, that came a little later, I think. But Chiller Theater, I think, was like a Friday or a Saturday night.
Saturday, probably.
And then also there was a creature feature which usually played on another local channel, WNEW.
Channel 5, right?
Yeah, Channel 5, and that had monster movies too. So sometimes you'd have to like choose which monster you wanted to watch.
Right.
You know, and that was before remote the
remote control.
So you had to manually change it. So to go from like 11 to 5 really quickly didn't always work. So sometimes you ended up missing the monster, and you're like, I'm just going to stick to one movie.
Did you watch them like late at night with your brothers or your dad or something?
My younger sister would, if she was kind of interested.
Oh, they were? Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there was. We used to watch a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy stuff, and like The Outer Limits.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Twilight Zone and Star Trek. My mother loves Star Trek.
Oh, really? So you guys were an imaginative family.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat, man.
Unless they could imagine their son going to art school, then they kind of like, wait a minute now.
Yeah, both my parents had absolutely. Well, my mom maybe watched a few things. But my dad had absolutely no interest in sci-fi or horror or any of this stuff. He was just like, "What is this crap? I gotta go out. I gotta go out to the racetrack. Yeah, I got better things to do than watch this crap." I'm like, okay. But hey, God bless him. Whatever. Anyway, so yeah. So I'd never seen this before. I had the DVD. I never watched it. Actually, I bought the DVD. I'd never watched the Shuttered Room either until last week. So that's the way it goes. You know what I mean? I recorded it off of probably TNT, like in the 90s.
Yeah.
But I probably started watching it, but it just kind of had like a feeling of like, where's the horror here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I gave Shuddered. This one was a little bit more horror, or monster, creature feature, whatever. But the other, Shuddered was like drama, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I kind of got bored of it, even though I had cool people. This is more horror, and Roddy McDowall's always good. He's always has, a presence. Even if he's wearing an ape suit or whatever, you know who he is, and he's cool and stuff like that. So, but yeah. I never seen this. I'm actually surprised. I read reviews of this, and a lot of people actually had like more of a liking to this than I did in a way. I like it, but I don't like it that much. Chris and I watched it.
Yeah.
And he thought it was silly as hell. He was just like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but." Yeah, in the early 90s, TNT had Monster Vision, and they would play all this stuff Saturdays and Sundays. It really was. There really was a lot. I mean, I have the TV guide. I mean, one local TV guide somewhere in a box somewhere, and I looked it up, and I was like, damn, they were playing all these movies, on TNT or sometimes on a local channel. It was just like, it's like you said, I don't know which one to watch.
Right.
So I would just VHS them, which I still have, and I burned a bunch of them on DVD. As a matter of fact, I found a box buried in a closet, and I was like, "Oh, is this more comics or something?" And it was a box of burned DVDs, and I'm talking about like maybe 150 of them just from stuff that I did off of TV. And I watched a couple. I watched The Leech Woman. It was off the old Sci-Fi Channel.
Right.
I watched, what was the other one that I watched? Something called Screaming Mimi, which is like a early 60s noir kind of. But what was interesting about it was in the beginning of it had an old TV host from the 70s and 80s, local guy called Dave Dixon. I had a clip of him. I go, wow, I have a clip of Dave Dixon. That's interesting. Then the movie played. And after the movie was over, I had like an episode of this weird comedy show called Bizarre, hosted by John Biner. Did you ever see that show?
I remember watching that.
It came on after the movie. Either that or I got to watch it again, because here's what happened. It was probably one of those 6-hour tapes that I had, and I recorded a lot of things, and then I recorded over a lot of things, so I was able to get a clip of Dave Dixon. I got Screaming Mimi, and I'll have to watch it again, but I'm not sure Bizarre came on after, because it did show on local TV, or it was from Cinemax. Because after Bizarre was over, I got like some, not the complete movie, just the beginning of some sleazy Cinemax movie called Melody. And the beginning we get some naked lady riding on a horse, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So, I don't know. It could have been. I know Bizarre showed on local television, but it was edited, but it was show on cable, unedited, with nudity in it. So it was kind of a weird show, but yeah. So some of these tapes have some like golden nuggets from the past. It really is like watching 1980s, early 90s television, with commercials for like, those, what do they call those? Not K-Tel, but remember those commercials they used to have for like collections of rock music, and it was like, hey man. U.S. Rock or something like that.
Has been singers, or like one has been old singer who, it's like, God, is he still alive? And some beautiful girl, and they'd be talking about, love songs or.
Oh no! Here's a classic one for me. It's like this one. I remember the name of it too. Now it's this one where it's like these two old hippies on a van. It's like freedom rock, man. Yeah, that's right, man. And they play like, oh Lord, I was born a rambling man and all this stuff. I was like, oh man, those records were great, man. Let me get a doob, And I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, freedom rock. All that stuff's on YouTube, but it's nice to have it on a local.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I used to. A lot of my album collection was filled with K-Tel.
You did? You had K-Tel?
Yeah, K-Tel stuff. Yeah, well, you could buy like.
That's awesome, dude.
And sometimes they were like albums you couldn't find anywhere.
You still have them, or did you get rid of them?
Oh, they're long gone.
Oh, that's too bad.
But yeah, I remember all those. In fact, I remember, I don't know who had, maybe it was K-Tel, but you had this little stand, and it had these like clips in it, and you could insert your albums in it, and they would lean back, and if you wanted to go through, you'd pull one forward, and the other ones would slowly move forward, so you could choose whatever album you wanted.
That was like some Ronco's album selector or whatever.
Oh, man.
I still have a couple of K-Tel. I think one's called 20 Explosive Hits with firecrackers on the front. It's got like, the thing about those records was they always would have like 20 hits, and they crammed them onto the album, so they were all like, one song is over and the next one starts instantly almost. They're trying to grab so much music on it, and sometimes it didn't sound good because they were, what they call it, group cramming or whatever they call it, but I have a couple of them.
It was made out of the cheapest vinyl.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes even I can remember getting a couple of records where they didn't even like trim down the rim of it, so you have a sharp edge from the pressing, and you
exactly
like a cut on your finger, almost like a vinyl paper cut. And you're like, oh, holy crap, what the hell?
And every month they had at least 2 or 3 of them. It was like K-Tel presents hits of the 70s, hits of the late 70s, hits of the mid 70s, hits of the early 80s. Every month was like, okay, they called them with different things like.
It's Mellow Gold.
Mellow Gold, there you go, Mellow Gold, yeah. Oh yeah, I think I have one. You used to be able to buy records at stores for like $1 or $2. I don't think you can anymore. But up until like a few years ago, you used to be able to buy them for nothing. And I think I picked up some of that Mellow Gold ones because it was like a double album of like all the 70s hits, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. It was like 50 cents or something, So I'm like, yeah, that's cool, that's fun, I'll take it, But now it's probably everything is like. I watch YouTube videos of these people like, oh my God, this record is one of my like holy grails, like some Sparks record. I paid $40 for it, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I wrote to the lady, I go, you paid? And she's like, yeah, but I need it really bad. I'm going like, Jesus Christ, I remember that record being everywhere like 10, 15 years ago for $5.
Yeah.
But now it's like these vinyl guy people are paying big bucks for this stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, better you than me. I still have my record collection.
Yeah, that's the curse of eBay. Everybody now thinks their old junk is worth a fortune, so everything's priced like 10 times what it's actually worth. And they don't sell it, and so what they do is they just keep relisting it.
Yeah,
and go on that, hey, maybe if you drop the price.
Well, they always have the best offer, and a lot of times you give them a best offer and they're like, no, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? How about free postage? No. I'm like, screw you. You know?
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah. Those K-Tel records are like amazing or whatever. This movie here, I don't even know if this came out, which we should be getting back to. This movie was like, I don't even think this came out on video, VHS. I think it just went straight to DVD, which is cool. The DVD looks great. It's from Warner's. And I believe I got it cheap because there was a time in the early 2000s where Big Lots, you have a Big Lots up there or Ollie's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big Lots, Ollie's, yeah, both.
Big Lots was getting rid of a bunch of their Warner, so there was a bunch of these things for like $2, $3, and I was like, okay, sure, I'll take it, because I guess Warner was cleaning out their, back stock or whatever, and getting ready for just streaming or whatever, so I'm like, okay, I'll take it, so I remember getting these or whatever, and of course it's in storage, but I found it on YouTube. It under the title of My Edited Video. Is that where you watched it on YouTube?
I think so. My edited video.
Yeah, that was it. Some guy had it as My Edited Video.
Yeah.
But then, whatchamacallit, I had recorded it off Turner Classic Movies not long ago, so I had it twice. So I'm like, okay, well, there you go. So yeah, I watched it again over Chris's house a couple of days ago. It is what it is, it starts off with like a fire at a museum, and Roddy McDowall and his curator go over there because they hear there's a fire there. They I don't know if they were trying to get insurance. They're trying to take note of what's left for the insurance company or something like that.
Because the building's in ruins and you see rubble everywhere, and they're like, well, do the police guy, and they're like, can we look look around and see if there's anything left that's worth salvaging? Because I think it was like a museum warehouse.
Yeah.
Additions or something. So anyway, they go in, they find this golem or the statue with standing. He looks like a giant raisin almost.
With a pinhead.
And he's got his arms sort of at right angles, like he's holding a serving tray, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, right.
This thing survived. It's early, medieval, primitive, something. I don't know. He came up with some fake-sounding art movement name, and he's looking at it and sees inscriptions. So he sends Roddy McDowall to get a flashlight. And as Roddy McDowall runs down, he hears the guy scream. He runs back to where the statue is. The guy's dead, and Roddy McDowall notices that one of the arms is lower than the other now, and he's looking at it going, from the very beginning, he's acting all weird and suspicious, creeping around and stuff. So then they, let's see.
Then as Roddy McDowall leaves, he hears, oh, and then he looks around and the guy's, his partner's dead there, his curator's dead, and right in front of the statue.
Yeah.
And he can't figure out what the hell's going on or whatever, So then the titles come up, It. So
and then he goes home and you see him undressing and talking to his mother because she's in a rocking chair. And he goes, oh, it's the fire at the warehouse. The curator died. Oh, mother, you shouldn't be sitting in the dark. He's having like a one-way conversation. And then he goes, oh, by the way, I took this jewel from the museum. You can't really ask me to keep doing this because the board of directors wouldn't understand, because all you want to do is wear them, and I return them. So then he walks over to the rocker and he takes this jeweled necklace, and that's when you see the mother for the first time, and she's just like a mummy, a skeleton.
Yeah, exactly like Psycho.
Yeah, exactly like
With
Psycho.
the big old hairdo and, the skull face and all that stuff.
Yeah, and he puts the jewel around her, and it's like supposed to be shocking. It's kind of tame now, but I'm sure back then it was like,
yeah. And then it cuts to the scene where he's back at the office, and he's expecting to get like a promotion.
Yeah, the curatorship to replace the guy. And then, well, you're too young.
So he gives him like 3 pounds a week extra.
That's $150 a year.
Exactly right. And then he's kind of pissed, but what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? It's like, and then they end up hiring some other jerky guy or whatever who shows up later on and kind of like is a jerk to him. But then again, Roddy's kind of a jerk too, So he's checking out the monster, and these workmen guys come in to I forgot what they were doing, but the workmen come in there to...
Yeah, the workmen lifted it up. Supposedly it weighs about 3,000 pounds. So they had put it on a pedestal. And then as he's walking on, an electrician comes in.
Yeah, a young guy.
Yeah, to, add lighting. And he's, being dismissive to the statue, and Roddy McDowall goes, I wouldn't talk badly of the statue, And so, he leaves and goes to go up to his office, and the electrician takes a match, pulls out a cigarette, because back then everybody smoked.
I wanted to mention something about that to you. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm trying, besides kids movies, maybe westerns, I don't know. It seems like every movie that I watched lately has somebody smoking in it.
Yeah.
From the 60s down, maybe in the 70s it cooled off a little bit, but from the 60s down, it's like everybody is smoking. I'm trying to make a list of what movies have I ever watched, older movies that don't have smoking in them, but then I digress.
Yeah, so anyway, the electrician strikes a match to light a cigarette, and as Roddy McDowall's walking up the stairs, he hears a scream, and he goes running down, and he finds a statue had toppled over and crushed the electrician. So he calls the police. Oh, and so he looks at that and sees it, and then he goes over and smashes
the jewel box and takes some more jewels.
Well, actually, I think he was putting one back.
Oh, he's putting one back. Later on, he takes more out.
Yeah, later he takes it. So then the police come and they're investigating, and they're asking him all sorts of questions, and they're wondering, like, they kind of are suspicious of him.
Yeah, big time, yeah.
So then he's in his office, and the daughter of the
old guy, the guy who died at the beginning, the curator, yeah.
He's working there as a secretary or something, and
Joe Haworth.
I want to drive to look for a new house with me and my mother. And she's like, oh, I forget his name in the movie, but Roddy.
Pim. His name is Pim.
Pim. She says, oh, Pim, we're just friends. He goes, oh, yes, I know. So then
No, go ahead.
Board members comes in. He's like, oh, we got to get rid of that thing. It's just horrid, and people are just coming to look at it for morbid sake. So we got a guy flying in from the U.S. because the U.S. Museum is interested in it. And Roddy McDowall gets concerned. So then the
American guy shows up.
Yeah, the American guy.
And he starts looking at the statue, and he starts checking it out to see if it's authentic, and this and that and the other thing. And then at this point, and then Joe Haworth comes in, and then she starts like falling from the American guy.
Yeah. Well, Joe handsome.
Yeah.
And he's got a suit and tie on and short hair, and he's a nondescript, suave. And then so Roddy McDowall shows him the golem, and they're talking, and he's telling them the legend of the golem, and he says, oh, there's writing here. Did you take a rubbing of it? And he goes, no, not yet. And he goes, And then he wants to take some samples of the golem. So he borrows a penknife from Pim, Roddy McDowall, and he scrapes off some of the stone into an envelope to have it tested. And I'm watching this and going, wait a minute. According to the legend, the golem's indestructible. So how can you use a knife to scratch? Because if that's the case, instead of Plan B at the end of the movie, they just attack it with penknives and scrape it.
Scrape it to pieces or whatever. Yeah. So then he takes the writing to a rabbi to inspect, and the rabbi tells him the legend of the golem or whatever,
right.
And he's saying that he's indestructible and supreme power and the whole 9 yards or whatever. And Roddy starts like, really? Oh, that's interesting, So I could have like all this power in my hands, and I can get my girl maybe to go out with me or whatever, or I can impress her.
Discovers that to control the golem, you have to use a little scroll, and on the word is Empeth or Emteth or something, which means truth or the word of God or something like that. So then he goes back to the museum. He meets the replacement curator, who's this old fuddy-duddy, fussy guy. And,
kind of a jerky guy, yeah.
Yeah, like, I had no sense of humor. I heard the last guy was a ball of glass. Wasn't. But if things will be different around here, and if you follow the rules, my rules, then, we'll have no problem. So then Roddy McDowall goes down, and he's looking at the golem and studying it. And the new curator comes in and says, "What are you doing here? It's after hours. Are you working or admiring the artwork?" He goes, and Roddy McDowall goes, "I'm studying it." He says, "Well, from now on, there's a new rule. No people, except for the night watchman, allowed in the museum after hours." So then Roddy McDowall leaves, and he hides, and then the old geezer goes upstairs. So then he goes back in, and he says to the golem, he's still staring at the golem, he says, "Oh, I'm in touch with the supernatural. My mother used to hold seances when I was 4, and I know you're in there." And so he commands the golem, "Show me where the scroll is." So there's like a flash of lightning, and you see the golem's arm pointing downwards. And then the door bursts open, and
but the guy comes in, and chides him for being there. He yells at him.
Yeah. So in the meantime, Roddy McDowall had found the scroll in the secret compartment in the foot of the golem. So the man's going, "Oh, you're sacked. You're out of here, and get out, get out." And then Roddy McDowall, tells the golem to kill the new guy. "Oh, kill him!" He turns away, and the golem strikes him dead.
Yeah, he kabongs him over the head. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he sees that. So then he controls the golem, and he goes into a case, turns the alarm off, and then opens the case, starts taking jewels, and then he commands the golem to smash the case.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And he gets all he can out of it. And then he tells the golem to stand back exactly the way he was, I think.
Yeah.
And then I think the next day the police show up at McDowell's house, questioning him again. Now they're really suspicious of him, but...
Yeah. I think it was at night.
Was it at night? Okay, because they woke him up, yeah.
Like, it's early in the morning. Do you know what time it is? And so the police they're questioning him, and and McDowell's in his bathrobe, and he's like, "Well, you live here with your mother?" "Yes." He said, "Well, we want to talk to her, to find out, what time you came home and stuff." So, "Well, she was asleep when I came home, so, she wouldn't know." And then the police are like, So they leave.
And then he sets up like a lunch with Joe Haworth, right, or something like that after that.
And he's all happy and peppy and stuff. And
because now he's got all these jewels where he can get probably thinking of making some money off them or something.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I feel like I can do anything." And at first they're on the bench talking before lunch, and she's telling him that her and the USA guy had found the new curator because the USA guy wanted to take another look at the golem. So then, after they eat, and it leaves a big tip. They're by a bridge somewhere, and he's like, "I can do anything." And
yeah, you want me to destroy that bridge over there? And she's like laughing at him.
"Oh, Pim," and she walks away. So that night,
this is my favorite scene, actually.
Yeah, he steals puts the scroll in the golem's mouth.
No. Right after he's talking to her, that's when he goes home and he has the dream about her.
Right. That night. That night. You see him in bed and he's laying there, and he wakes up and he looks over and there's this soft focus view of the girl Ellen. I think they called her in the movie. Was it Jill?
I think her name was Ellen, yeah. Jill Haworth is the actress, yeah.
So she's laying there, she's nude, and she has a diaphanous silk things, covering, concealing part of her body, and she's all looking at him doughy-eyed, and And he gets up and he's going towards her with his hands outstretched.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he like shakes his head and opens his eyes again, and he sees it's his dead mother lying on the couch, and he screams.
Yeah, that was another shock scene, but it was also like a damn great scene, actually. You know? Yeah, that was like her best scene in the movie. You know, he was like, oh, okay, you know, and then it's Mom, and I'm like, oh boy, okay, so I guess Mom sleeps with him.
Yeah. Ugh. So then he orders the I don't know if it's that night or the next night or whatever. He orders the Golem to destroy the bridge, which it does, and then the next day, she's with
the American guy.
And they're all getting smoochy and kissy and stuff.
And smoking.
And smoking. And she gets a phone call from McDowall. He wants to meet her, and she's like, "Oh, okay, well, that's kind of late." And the U.S. guy goes, "Tell him we'll meet him."
He'll meet her.
Yeah, he'll meet. I'll go in your place.
Yeah, right.
Sets up the meeting, and then Roddy McDowall is there. He goes, "Where's Ellen?" He says, "Oh, she couldn't come. She sent me in her place." "Well, why didn't she call? That's rather rude." So then he offers the U.S. guy a drink, and they go, and Roddy McDowall's, and that's when the U.S. guy says, "Well, I want to take Ellen back with me to the U.S."
Right, yeah.
Yeah, she's English. He says, "Well, we speak the same language." And then Roddy McDowall goes, "Do you want to see the Golem?" So he takes the U.S. guy to see the Golem, and the U.S. guy goes, "There's something different about it. There's something unusual." And Roddy McDowall goes, "Yes, if you keep staring at it, you can almost sense that it's alive." And then the U.S. guy warns Roddy McDowall about having too much power and how it can corrupt you and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And the police come to question him about the bridge because somebody saw him.
Somebody saw the Golem, right, or something?
Yeah, somebody saw him and the Golem leave the museum, and I think a police officer saw him beep his horn 3 times. So then
Roddy decides he's going to burn the Golem, right? He takes him to he takes him out to a woodshed and puts fuel on him or whatever, but no such luck.
And then he thinks, first he sends him to walk into the water.
That's right, the water. That didn't work, yeah.
And then he gets up the next day and he goes, "Oh, is anything wrong?" He calls the security, goes, "Oh, no, everything's all right." He goes, "Ooh," and he gets curious, and he walks down and he sees the Golem is back where it was. So then he goes, "Oh," so the next night he puts him in a shed and tries to burn him, and again the Golem is back.
Right.
And,
right, and then at some point the Golem escapes and he starts busting through walls and stuff like that of the building. Did they put Roddy McDowall in jail or no? They put him in a nut house or something like that or no?
No, not yet.
Okay, all right.
I don't think he was under arrest, but they were suspicious. So then Roddy McDowall realizes he can't.
Well, the Golem goes in and steals his girlfriend, or steals Jill Haworth or whatever.
Yeah. So he realizes that he can't destroy the Golem, so he's got to hide out with it somewhere. So he has the Golem kidnap
Jill Haworth, and if they take a big black truck or whatever. Is it a hearse or something like that?
Yeah.
Or?
And he puts his mother in a coffin.
Yeah, right.
In the back. So he drives out to another, it looks like an old mansion. It was like a cloistered house or something.
Yeah, it's gated and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, we purchased this for the museum. We're going to open it to house the medieval artwork. So he beeps the horn, and the woman who's the caretaker there, she opens up and lets him in. Well, I got a new acquisition for the thing. So then
at first she's okay with it, but then she gets suspicious when Joe Haworth starts telling her, "Hey, you got to do something about this. You can't let this happen or whatever."
Yeah. And then is that when the old lady sees the golem for the first time?
Yeah, she sees the golem for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, Miss Caretaker, you better watch your tongue and stuff. So he has them trapped in this building, and the golem is standing guard outside by the gate. And
I forgot how was it that the army knew about where he was going? Were they tracking her or something like that? Because they do show up at this point. Once they're inside the golem, he tells the golem to guard the gate. And then the army guys and the American guys show up at the gate.
Well, I think the old lady set a fire on the roof.
That's right.
Attract people, and the police are looking for Roddy McDowall, and the U.S. guy says, he had stopped by Ellen's apartment, so it was a wreck, and he says he must have taken her to he must have kidnapped her. So the woman sets the fire, and then Roddy McDowall goes up on the roof, and he sets her on fire, and she dies.
Yeah.
And then they are, he has the girl, Ellen, locked in the room. He says, I have to keep you locked in here for your own safety. So then the U.S. guy and the police and the army show up, and they realize that the golem is real, and it's the one doing all the destruction. So first they fire a bazooka at it, and then they get some giant gun. I don't know if it's on a tank or something. They fire that at it, and you see just like a little explosion, hits the golem in the chest, but nothing happens. But then they come up with
the ultimate solution to this.
Yeah, a big plan. They're going to let loose a small nuclear.
Small nuclear in the English countryside.
That has only a 1 mile area blast radius, so it must be very small. And then you have to be away at least 3 miles to to be safe. So in the meantime, the girl, they must have told Roddy McDowall what they were doing, or maybe they heard it on the radio. She's like, "Look, you have to get out of here because they're gonna bomb us with a nuclear bomb." And she's like, "Oh, you can't destroy the golem." She says, "Well, the golem may be indestructible, but we aren't." And he goes, "No, because of my deeds, I will live forever, and in history, whatever." And she's like, "Well, let me take your mother away and take her to safety." He goes, "Oh no, my mother warned me about you. You're trying to separate us." So then he commands the golem to throw the girl out of the house, which he does, and the military are watching from a 3 mile distance through binoculars, and they see that the golem threw the girl out, and it's like 2 minutes till the bomb explodes. So the American guy sees that the girl's there, so he jumps on the motorcycle and he races,
like in The Great Escape. He jumps over fences and stuff.
River, and he drives around and he grabs the girl, picks her up, and puts her on the back of the motorcycle, and they race away. But the second time, he goes over a little bridge across the river, and they get there just as the bomb explodes, and they jump into the foxhole,
and you see the big mushroom cloud.
Well, a tiny mushroom cloud, because it's
tiny mushroom cloud.
Nuclear device.
Yeah.
So they're looking, and it's complete and utter devastation. And then one of the guys with the binoculars goes, "No, look!" And then you see the golem walking out from the smoke, and then you see him slowly walking towards the ocean, where he walks into the ocean and disappears. The end.
Yeah, the end. Strange
Yeah.
Strange ending.
I had a feeling they didn't know how to end it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They came up with this wacky solution.
I even said before the movie was over, they go like, well, we tried this and we tried that, and I went to Chris, I went, hey, maybe they're trying nukes or whatever, and all of a sudden I go, oh no, they are? Oh my God. Oh well, whatever. It looks cool. The people are good actors. Roddy McDowall's always good. I mean, him and Joe Haworth are good. The other actors are adequate. It's just, I don't know, it was just maybe a little bit too silly. But it was fun, though.
Yeah, it was fun. It was like a roller coaster. A lot of twists and turns and fun stuff, but not really creepy enough.
The monster was cool.
Yeah.
He looked cool. I mean, it's okay. It's worth watching. I mean, don't expect, greatness or anything like that, but at least it's got a monster. And this is one of those movies where you see the monster all throughout the movie. It's not like they don't wait until the end to show it to you. You see it from the beginning to the end, and he looks cool. It looks good. Yeah. I mean, it's all right. I had a lot of good elements to this movie. It was just, I don't know, that ending was just so dumb.
Yeah, I think if they had a different ending or had a different way of solving the solution, it would have been, a small nuclear device with a 1 mile radius.
Whatever. All the radiation going everywhere, in the middle of England in 1967. And I guess they got the Beatles out of the country, so they wouldn't be, nuked by this, bomb. But yeah, I don't know. Silly ending. Okay, movie. Roddy McDowall and Joe Haworth were really good in it, so yeah, I think it's worth watching.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun movie to, pass the Friday night or Saturday night if you just want to watch something and not have to think too much.
Now, you didn't see it. You saw it as a 20-year-old maybe or something, not necessarily a kid, a young child or whatever. Okay, so you remember it from that era. You don't remember it as like a little kid watching it or whatever.
No, I remember seeing pictures of it because it came out in 1967.
Yeah.
And wondering. There was that horror book.
Dennis Gifford?
Yes.
And that's right. There is a picture of that in there, isn't it? Because it's a British movie. That's right. Yeah.
And I can remember every time I went to Borders, or not Borders, Walden Books.
Walden Books, yeah.
And I would go in there and look at it and page through it. Because, every time we went to the mall, we went as a family. And then so, my mom was, doing clothes shopping and stuff. My dad,
sure.
He went off looking at tools or something.
Yeah, he went to Sears, the Craftsman tools or whatever,
And so I would always go wander over to Walden's and just look through that book, thinking,
did you ever buy it?
No, I never bought it. I should have.
It was like $5. I bought it when I was a kid.
Yeah, but that's my mom was weird sometimes. So depending on what she saw and what mood she was in, she would say, no, you can't have the book, get rid of it. Especially if there were a lot of cleavage and stuff in it. Monsters, she was kind of okay with, but
okay.
With the devil, she would, it's good Catholic. No, you can't do that. You can't have that book.
I get it. Yeah. I don't think my parents never really looked at anything for the most part, except for that one issue of Vampirella that I got, and he just looked at it and went, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's comics. Okay, you can have it." That was the only time they ever gave any, anything about anything that I was reading or whatever. So, but yeah. I remember the same thing. My mom would go to clothing stores, and I would go there, and it's like, yeah, I'll meet you at the food court, in an hour or whatever. Yeah, I was just at a mall a couple of weeks ago. They still have some, apparently. Wow. It was pretty. I mean, there was still. It wasn't like the old days, but yeah, there were a lot of people there. We just sat there, waited around, and for my friends, and I was like, okay, well, it's a mall. There's stores, there's a food court, or barely a food court. Well, there was one there. There was an FYE where they had music and crap and stuff. There wasn't any bookstore, and there was just kind of a drag. And then the other time that I went there was when they had a little mini comic convention. That was the other time that I went there. That's right, about 3 or 4 months ago or whatever. They had I've been there twice, but this is a small town, so it's like I guess they need them all.
Yeah, yeah. I miss the malls sometimes because you could go there like on a Saturday. You'd go there in the you'd could walk around different stores. I'd always go to hit the Woolworths because you could buy cheap records there.
Yep. Yeah, you sure could.
And then I'd also sometimes if they had a good toy section, you could get some cool models.
Sure.
And across from Woolworths on the other side of the mall, like it was, it's not from one end to the other. It was just like across the aisle was a Sam Goody, so I'd go in there. And I can remember going in there to buy needles for the record player.
Oh, remember that? A little record player, the needle, snap it in there or whatever. Like, take one out and go snap. And you got to make sure you get it in right, or else the record will sound like shit. You got to go. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then I think there was I would go to Sears to go to their toy store, and sometimes they had some cool models you could buy. And then
remember everywhere all the big stores had monster models.
Yeah, when you go to a store, they would have a place to eat. They'd have a toy store, a book or a toy section, a book section,
records,
electronics, clothes. So you could basically spend. And there were days when we would literally spend like almost all day in Sears. Or if I got lucky, I could. I'm going to the bookstore because it was literally like 2 stores down from the Sears, so I could go in there. And, my mom was like, "Well, meet us here in an hour," and then in an hour comes by, everybody's there except my mom. She's off still shopping.
Oh, and don't forget I don't know about you guys, but where we live, they had the music store where they had a guy on the Lowry organ, playing it.
Yeah.
Like, they had the shoe store, the clothing stores,
Tom McCann, and there was a Stride Right.
Where they usually had 2 anchor stores. There was a Sears on one side, and I think there was a Penny's in the middle.
Yeah.
And on the other side, there was a store called Burdine's. And all 3 of those department stores, you can go to the record department and get all the classic records. Now, all the classic records of yesteryear were all there. Led Zeppelin, Zappa, Janis. I remember going there and looking at all these records and going like, wow, these are so cool looking. I wonder what they sound like, but I didn't have $5 or $4.
Yeah.
So I'd get a Beatles because I knew the songs from watching the Beatle cartoons. That's the thing about Beatle records. I watched the Beatle cartoons, so not only did I know the hits, but I knew the deep tracks. So I would go in there and going like, oh wow, Revolver. Oh, I know this song. I liked it. I know that song. Or Yesterday Today. I know those songs. Yeah, I'll get this for $4. I remember buying Beatle albums in a food market called Stevens. They actually had a little record section there in the late '60s, and I remember buying music. So I was like, okay, it was cool.
And the worst thing about buying records back then is because you'd buy I like that song Hocus Pocus by.
Oh, Focus, yeah.
But I remember buying the album.
Oh no, my friend did the same thing, and going like, what is this?
Yeah, the rest of the album was like, what the hell is this?
My friend did the same thing. We went to a record store and bought it because that song was so cool, and we played the record. And it was like classical almost sounding.
Yeah. I think like one song, Moving Away.
Yes.
What the hell is?
You did the same thing. My friend did the same exact thing. We brought it back to his house and we listened to it. And we were going like, "What is this?" And I guess he kept it, But it was like, usually it was like he would get like Joe Cocker or Janis Joplin or Led Zeppelin or whatever, But He decided he wanted to get or the first Black Sabbath or whatever, which they all rocked out, but boy, that one was odd. Apparently it's a great record, but I mean, I guess I didn't appreciate it at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I didn't either. But I mean, now with streaming, you can preview the songs and.
Yeah, back then you couldn't do that, man.
You wouldn't even know what the damn song sounded like because they only played
one song,
like one or sometimes two songs from an album.
And back then you didn't have the history of music, so if it wasn't really catchy, or if it wasn't like, well, now that I'm like 40 years in the future, I can appreciate it because of this and that and the other thing. Back then you just wanted instantaneous rock and roll, you know. And you'll get a record and you'll like, what is this crap? Not just that one. I'm talking about I used to buy like greatest hits a lot. Not greatest hits a lot, but I would buy some of them. Like they had a Three Dog Night called Golden Biscuits. That was great because it had all their hits. The Beatles were always good. Led Zeppelins were always generally good. But every once in a while you get something and you're like, what is this? I like this one song, and the rest of them are like mellow. What is this? I'll give you an example. Here's an example. I had the money, and I remember liking Deep Purple, and I was like, "What record am I going to get? Get Machine Head? No. Get the earlier ones with the you can get on the. I'll get this one called Stormbringer. It had one to my light taste. It had one song that I liked a lot, and the rest of them were kind of. I haven't listened to it since. I should listen to it again. The rest of them were kind of like middle of the road rock and roll, and it was just like, and the record station would play a lot of cool songs, but a lot of times they wouldn't go deep into the records. They would just play like My Woman from Tokyo or Smoke on the Water or whatever. So I was like, oh. And then every once in a while a kid would like, hey, check this record out, like Paranoid, Black Sabbath, or In Rock by Deep Purple, and they would loan it to you. Occasionally there was a few kids that would loan you a record in school, so then you could check it out and see if you liked it or not. But you didn't know. So you know what I would do if it wasn't for greatest hits, I would buy 45s.
Yeah, 45s, and even then sometimes you got burned on side B.
The B-sides.
But I had 45s of songs I really liked. Because, again, they were a hell of a lot cheaper than buying a whole album and of that may or may not suck. And I can remember looking at some really cool covers.
The picture sleeves for the 45s?
No, these were the album covers. Looking at album covers, like, really cool sounding. Like, there was one Mastodon. I can remember seeing a bunch of their covers, and I'm like, wow, these are really cool. But it wouldn't buy it because you wouldn't know what the hell they sounded like because they weren't played on regular radio.
A lot of the bands would not get played on regular radio. I mean, you'd get a few. You would get a few. Let's put it this way: the best example I can come up with now. You'd get a few Black Sabbath songs. You'd get Paranoid. You get War Pigs. You may get the first Black Sabbath song. But then I'm looking at an album cover, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool looking. They didn't play a damn song off that record on the radio. But when I heard it years later, I was like, this is a good record.
Yeah, why didn't they play it? Why didn't they play this? Why?
Same thing with Black Sabbath Volume 4. I never heard a damn song on the radio. And then when I got it for cheap, like at Walmart, I was like, this is a really good record. It's got a lot of good songs on it. Never played one. They were too busy playing Led Zeppelin or the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or whatever, what I mean, some Crosby, Stills and Nash stuff or whatever. And they didn't go into some of these records because either the record label wasn't pushing it on them or the DJs didn't like it or I don't know.
Who the hell knows? I think maybe they had a contract, they had to play the song a certain number of times. Or,
yeah.
There were some albums never represented, or some bands you never heard of.
No.
Like, I mean, and then you find out later that they've been around for like years. I was like, well, this is the first time I'm hearing of them, and so I have no clue what they sound like.
Yeah, like you'd hear a few Alice Cooper songs, but not the deep stuff in the album, But they're not even a good example. here's a good example. Not a band that I love, but whatever. A band called Uriah Heep. The only song I ever heard of Uriah Heep on the radio station where I lived was Easy Livin'. Maybe there was another one. Maybe there might have been another one, but they had a bunch of records. They never played them. You know, Yes Roundabout, they played. Starship Trooper, they played. Maybe not. Oh, here's a perfect example. The only song on WSHE that I remember ever listening to when I was a kid, the only one from this band when they were in their classic era from 70 to 75, was The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis. I never heard any other song on the radio by Genesis.
That's true. Lamb Lies, yeah.
That's the only one I ever heard. Now, in New York, you had better radio stations.
We had a progressive rock station, so they would play more stuff. There was this DJ, Allison Steele, the Nightbird.
The Nightbird, yeah.
Yeah, and she played she would play deep tracks and music from albums, like different songs. And, so sometimes you would hear, like, a band you never heard before, and you're like, oh, what the hell's that? And you would, like, listen, and then you would have to sit by the radio and listen to them announce what the band was or what the name of the song was. And sometimes they would talk really fast and you'd miss it. Or they wouldn't tell you at all. Like,
the only King Crimson they ever played on my station, WSHE, was Court of the Crimson Kid, King, Schizoid Man, I Talk to the Wind. Those are three great songs from in the Court of the Crimson Kid and King. What kid? King. But I never heard anything else from them.
I just heard King Crimson. I don't remember. I mean, Court of the Crimson King. I don't remember hearing any of them until I bought the album myself.
It wasn't until I met friends in college that said, hey, check out Red, check out Starless, check out Lark's Tongues. And I'm like, oh, these are great records. Why didn't they play them on the radio? Oh, they were too busy playing deep, whatever. I don't know, Smoke on the Water or 8 Times a Day. Or it was just, it was infuriating, you know.
Yeah.
And then the top 40 stations, sure, they would play any hit. It could be an R&B, it could be Smoky Mountain Way by, you know. But you know where I did, you know what happened was where I did start listening to different bands and getting a better idea was either on Don Kirshner's rock concert would play bands and they would play different songs than the ones I heard on the radio in concert. You know, the ABC's in concert. And then on Sundays on the radio stations they would play the King Biscuit Flower Hour.
Flower Hour, yeah.
And BBC Rock Hour. So I'd hear bands like Gentle Giant or Roxy Music or Ultravox, and you go, wow, they never play them during the regular time. Why don't they do that? Because, you know, their program director was too busy saying, no, that's not that. We don't want that. We want more hard rock. And I'm sorry. Here's what they played a lot of too: Marshall Tucker Band, the Outlaws, the Allman Brothers, all the Southern rock stuff. That got like played to the you know whatever, Wet Willie. Some of it's good. Some of it's okay. I'm not saying it's bad music, you know, but or you know whatever. But there's maybe a little bit of Dylan every once in a while. But so many bands never got any airplay. And you, like you said, you look at the records in the store and you think these are really cool records. But I didn't have $5 to shell out for a record that I had no idea what it sounded like.
Yeah.
You know, so I did.
I didn't find out till years later that, at least in the Sam Goody I went to, you could go up to the guy and ask him if he could play it. Sometimes they had like an open album they would listen to.
Yeah.
Or you try and get recommendations from them. And, you know, sometimes they were cool. A lot of times they were like, "What do you want? Get out!" You know, they were like bored and didn't want to be there.
Now with 45s, I would go to Woolworths or Woolworth knockoff store we had called Murphy's, GC Murphy's, and they would have 45s 3 for $1. So
that's cool.
So for $1, you can make an album.
Yeah.
No, for $2, because 12 songs or whatever. For one, or for, you know, whatever, because I would get like 3 Elton John singles, and the B-sides, whatever, you know, that would be 6 songs. So if I had another $1 and there was more of them, I could get 2 more for, you know, whatever, $1.60, and have a kind of make like my own album. So I usually just bought $1 worth. I didn't buy $2 worth, but it was a way of kind of like for $1 hearing, the music on my little crappy turntable or whatever. I still have them. I think it's here, a box, one of those ledger boxes, just full of my old 45s. You'll see stuff like Elton John, stuff that I don't really listen. I love Elton John, so I still listen to his earlier work, but like James Taylor, You Got a Friend, on the cover of the Rolling Stone by Dr. Hook, goofy stuff, whatever was, just whatever was a hit. I looked at them and I go, wow, I must have had like interest in novelty songs a bit, because there was quite a few of them there, but I was, that's all I could afford.
Yeah, exactly.
I think back in the 70s or the early 70s, a brand new 45 was 70 cents.
Yeah, something like 70, 75. I remember albums being like $2.98
or more. I remember wanting to get the White Album so bad, but it was $8 or something. I couldn't afford it, when I was a kid. So it was kind of like, oh well,
Yeah.
I remember going to. Did you ever have a store there called Ames up there in your neck of the wood?
Yep.
Ames. Okay, down here it was the same company, but it was called Zayre's, and they would have like a good record section, and that was like all I had to do was cross the street, and I could get to Zayre's. It was that close. It was a street, a big parking lot, and there was Zayre's. So I'd go there, all the time, and I remember getting I think they were even doing cutouts back then of Beatle records. And I think one of them has a price tag of $1.57 for like Beatles 65 or something new by the Beatles or whatever. So I remember buying those, and then I looked at them and there was a mono version. So I'm thinking, were they doing cutouts on the mono to get rid of them so they can bring in the stereos? I never was able to figure it out, But it's like I was telling somebody else where I lived then, and probably the same where you lived. We lived near the main drag, but it was pretty suburban, but it was only like 2 blocks. Everything was at I didn't need a car. I mean,
right.
The movie theater was 2 blocks away. The hobby store where I buy my models was in the same shopping center. There was like a 7-Eleven like another block away from that. Mall was a little bit further, about half a mile, but it was all there. We had a toy store called Playworld. That was like 3 blocks away. It was incredible.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
You had to drive to the 2 big malls.
Yeah.
So it was usually Saturday when my dad was off, because we lived on Long Island. He worked in the city, so his commute was like 2 hours, 2.5. Get up and leave like about 5 in the morning, and he wouldn't get back sometimes till like 8 or 9 at night. And it was a long haul. And the only store close was a grocery store up the block, and then like a block and a half over was a 7-Eleven. That's where I got my comics.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. The mall was about a mile away, but back then when I was like, I don't know, 16 or whatever, I could walk.
Yeah.
I could walk it. Now I was like, oh my God, my feet are killing me, my back's killing me. But back then it was like, yeah, I can do it, and I did. I used to walk to the mall a mile away, walk the mall, and then on the way back stop somewhere and get a Slurpee and, come home and whatever. And then we didn't have all this video at our disposal either, like with movies like it. We were just at the mercy of what they were showing on the weekends, because a lot of these movies never showed during the weekdays because they wanted the kids to watch them, and the kids at school, unless you were in the summer, and then they would show them whenever they wanted to because the kids were home or whatever. But in the 80s, you had video, and then you had a bunch of video stores in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Which you could walk to and rent stuff from, unedited things, weird European movies.
Movies that I only saw pictures of.
Yes.
In books or in magazines. But it's such a different world today. Everything's almost at your fingertips.
Yeah, including nuclear destruction. But
destructions of golems.
I need a golem, man. Oh, if I had one of those bad boys, oh boy. Watch out, everybody.
There you go.
All right, well, that's our movie for this week. We went on a trip down memory lane, as we do sometimes, but it's always fun to talk about all that good stuff. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another classic classic movie, B movie, Z movie, whatever, whatever you want to call them, low budget. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You can pick the next one. So,
Okay.
and in the meantime, while you're waiting for the next show, with bated breath, right, make sure you watch
more B-movies!
There once was a lady who got sick of the city, so she made herself a plan to get out of the city, find her roots in the jungle where a woman is a woman and a man is a man. She went looking for her mate. She didn't find a man, so she found herself an ape. She's an ape lady, the mistress of the apes.
Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
My blood, my body, I give to you, Satan.
Witchcraft is with us today, and now the bizarre truth is exposed in Witchcraft 70. Hidden cameras probe today's unspeakable cults to document the erotic rituals. Witchcraft 70. See human sacrifice on the altar of Baal. See sensual ecstasies of hippie families, and much more in Witchcraft 70, rated X.
An ocean cruise becomes a living nightmare for the passengers of Blood Voyage. Behind every door, death awaits the unsuspecting.
Don't come any closer.
For those aboard, there's no escape.
You're crazy.
For the shocker of your life, see Blood Voyage. Rated R.